Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of the INAWE Podcast. This will be shared on both of our YouTube channels, so I'm so excited. Today, I'm going to be interviewing the incredible Dana Kippel, who actually interviewed me on her podcast not too long ago, and we basically became internet best friends in the space of like a few weeks, and it was a beautiful love affair. But for anyone that doesn't know Dana, I've shared her on my story quite a few times. She is a plasma researcher, she is an author, she is a speaker, and she is known for exploring the relationship between plasma, the fourth state of matter, and consciousness. And she's the author of A New Force, which we're going to be talking about her book, which is incredible. I'm halfway through. This is a beast of a book, but if you're interested in plasma, please make sure that you get it, because in fact, if you're interested in manifestation, get this book, because this is it. It is almost the science behind manifestation, which is why I've been so fascinated. I've gone down such a rabbit hole of this since meeting Dana, but it basically explores plasma as a bridge between dimensions, shaping human perception and unlocking new human potential. So welcome, Dana. I'm so excited that we get to chat.
We are so good friends. You're literally my only friend, I think, that's like actually read my book too, which is so funny.
Well, I'm halfway through.
Yeah, but you're reading it.
That's
all that matters.
Oh yeah, I'm like fully deep in it. I was like sending you messages over the weekend being like, wait, did you just predict homeopathy in your...
I can't wait to hear about that, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, we will get to that.
We're like each other's biggest fans, and I think that is so rare, because usually you have friends that don't really give a shit what you do and you don't really care what they do and you're just friends. But that's just like both levels, which I really love.
I know, and I think it's a neurodivergent thing. We just get each other. And we do have to talk about also the Mary Magdalene connection, which I think we discovered on the first call. I believe, and I think we probably both believe, that Mary Magdalene is probably a force that has brought us both together. But let's get into that. So before we go anything, I would just love to start a little bit with your personal journey. Could you give an introduction into who you are and what first sparked your fascination with plasma?
So yes, my name is Dana Kippel, for anyone who has never heard of me. I'm currently a plasma researcher, but I have a long lineage before that of working in mental health, of just being a normal human who, was an addict in her teenage years. I had a food business, and then I moved to LA at 30. I was a filmmaker and a writer and an actor. And then I had a spiritual awakening while meditating, where, I had all these thoughts about plasma and felt very connected to plasma and my higher self. And this is 5 years later after that, and happy to get more into that some other time as well. But yeah, my main focus is studying plasma as a multidimensional living sentient substance, as what one would call maybe the divine feminine to the divine masculine, which I call consciousness. And then what is kind of beyond those both, which I would call awareness, right? So I kind of see those as 3 separate things, which I'm happy to get into also. But yeah,
okay. I definitely want to go into all of that, but I'm really interested, first of all, about this meditation. So it was a transcendental meditation that you did, and break down like exactly what happened. Like what was the voice that came through? Had you heard of plasma before? Like, did you even have that word in your vocabulary, on your radar? So how did that actually happen?
Yeah, so I started doing transcendental meditation because I was going through a rough relationship and I was very dissatisfied and unhappy. And I just was at my wit's end. I knew I couldn't, do drugs or drink. I knew I didn't want to like binge eat my feelings away. And I was like, all right, what's left? Maybe I'll try the spiritual route. So I tried transcendental meditation. And my 3rd time meditating, I was at my house and I was sitting at my desk actually, and I saw like an infinity symbol. I don't know if it was in my mind or I started writing one down, but I came out of my meditation and I just felt very plugged in and connected. And my I didn't really even have any intentions going into the meditation. It was more just like, I want to know who I am. I want to feel better. That was it. Never have heard of plasma in my life, by the way. So I'm coming out of this meditation. Yeah. I have come out of this meditation. I'm like a struggling actress, come out and a filmmaker, come out of this meditation, and I draw this feedback loop, and all of a sudden I'm like, plasma is intelligent. Plasma is the vehicle for consciousness. Like all these things were flowing out of me, but it was like thousands of things, like a big block, like that I I can't even describe that to you, honestly. It's like ineffable. But I was plugged into like the intelligence of plasma and like enveloped by it. And it started like telling me like, and it's weird because plasma to me is not actually conscious, it's more sentient and consciousness comes through it. But I felt like plasma somehow was telling me people misunderstand me. Like I'm alive. Like I'm more than what science tells you I am. Like help me. Like almost like crying out
Mm,
like a goddess of like Inanna or all the goddesses, how they descend to hell. It's kind of like I'm stuck in this hell of like misunderstanding. And, I'm not this dark goddess. I'm this multidimensional rainbow goddess and I want to be heard again. Like kind of like those kind of vibes. And it connects to Mary Magdalene and Inanna and Isis and every Persephone, every goddess ever. Tiamat, the dragon who got split from Earth. So anyway, crazy stuff. And then more than that, I had my higher self come through. And I've always heard a little voice telling me to like keep going. I think that's kind of what kept me alive through a horrible drug and alcohol addiction when I was younger, through, many times where I just was very, very frustrated with life. But I always had this little voice like, you're going to do something like just keep going. Even now it tells me like, you don't even know what's coming. Like, don't
yeah, you're just at the tip.
it's nothing to worry. I'm like, yeah, but this is like the best it's gonna get. I'm freaking out. And it's like, no. But yeah, there's always been this little voice. I'm glad I don't always listen to it, but it's always been there. But it was very prominent in this meditation. It was like, you're gonna write a book called A New Force. I've already written this in the future, but you're gonna co-create this
Whoa.
your reality in your own special way based on your life experience. And it's gonna be one of the like many of us can change the world. I'm not saying I'm the only one, but it says like you'll help change the world with this book. This knowledge
Wow.
can help change the world. And I know that sounds weird, but I'm like humbly saying that as like me bringing through whatever this force is. And yes, she showed me what it looked like, and was like, we're always here to support you. We're always here, and I don't know. It was like maybe some other things, but I don't want to make anything up. I can't really remember much else. But yeah, and then I was like in constant communication with her for a few months after that.
Wow. And did you just Google plasma afterwards and just buzz out?
So why I freaked out was because I Googled plasma and I Googled plasma intelligence. And this is 5 years ago. This is before Robert Temple's book came out, who's a prominent plasma researcher called A New Science of Heaven. But when I Googled plasma intelligence, what came out was him talking about it and saying he had a book coming out the following year about how plasma is intelligent. And I was like, what? I was like, this is
Oh,
real. I'm not insane. And then when the book came out, I was like, I'm not crazy. This is like, I think the same things. Like, yeah. So, and my book's kind of like a
wow.
accomplice to his. Like, it like expands into more feminine and mythology stuff where his is very science heavy, but good, great,
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Could you talk a little bit about like specifically what it was asking you to research? Because I love this idea that it came to you specifically as the channel for this, essentially. What makes you different to someone like Robert, who is slightly more on the
Yes.
scientific side? Like, what are you studying, or what
Yeah.
is your particular area of interest that you're
Mhm.
here to birth?
Yeah, no, I actually love that. So what is funny about that is what is the first question? Oh, how do I know what to study? So I didn't know what to study. The weird thing is this is like gnosis or like the feminine kind of wisdom and magic. I just flowed. So anytime I looked it up, I just went my curiosity and and these things found me. Like every book I found was in
Mm,
a flow. Nothing was thought out. I didn't know anything to look up. Like I just I had like one word that would come to me maybe in a meditation each time, like Anana or like like a Sanskrit word, and I would Google that, and I would go on a whole like 3 hour binge of random things, and they would all plasma was my main focus. So everything I looked up for like 4 years, I would always go, oh, that's plasma, and my pattern
wow.
recognition is just like my lens was only plasma, and everything I saw plasma in. So yeah, just that's how I looked anything up or knew what to research. I didn't. I just followed my flow versus logic. And then I think why I was kind of, chosen for this specific purpose, right? Slash like co-creating this purpose, versus like Robert's more scientific side. And he's very playful too. Um, I think the reason I was chosen to do like the feminine aspects of this book, I, have a background in mental health. It's very important for me to integrate things because I have severe trauma. And I know Robert's gone through a lot of stuff too, but my focus for like 10 years was like psychology and trauma and integrating my own trauma. And I think that I was able to take this knowledge or wisdom, I would say, and integrate it and also make sure I spoke to people about how it aligns with mental health and psychology and science and mythology. And I was also
Mm.
reading a lot of divine feminine stuff. At that first year, I would say there was a huge link with the divine feminine and trauma and plasma. So make that whatever you want. But yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy because you are the kind of person that has come to this subject through experience, it feels like. And what's so interesting about channeling is you have to be incredibly ego free to really receive these kinds of messages. Like if you are if you're thinking too much, if you're too much in your head, these messages don't come through to you. So you'd clearly gone through enough of a healing journey to get to a space where you'd gone into those meditations where your mind was actually very open, you were very curious. I'm
Yeah.
wondering whether you could talk a little bit more about that, because I know that you went to a laboratory recently where you were playing with
Plasma.
plasma,
Yeah.
and how as soon as you start thinking about
Yeah.
like
And stop.
co-creating, it actually stops the process. Could you talk a little bit about that, around first of all what your state was when you were going into these
Yeah.
meditations that allowed you to be a receiver, but also
Yeah.
how does being in that curious playful state, like how does
Mhm.
it affect plasma?
Yeah, I think the Zen Buddhists were right when they said a beginner's mind. I didn't know I had a
Mm,
beginner's I was very innocent. It's the same thing with the virgin too. We can use it with divine feminine, like Mary Magdalene, the virgin. Virgin is not Marion Woodman talks about this. The pregnant virgin is actually someone who's pregnant with possibilities and multiple potentials and who isn't owned by anyone. And that is what the virgin is. It's not this like, an authentic. It's not this, virgin who's never had sex and never made mistakes, right? So I feel like I was a virgin and innocent in that way where I had no belief system. I was not part of any religious group. I wasn't part of any really spiritual group. Like, yeah, I did TM3As, but like, this had nothing to do with that really. I mean, I think I actually have seen a natural weird alignment with people who do TM are talking about this, but they're calling it dark matter. We'll get into that same thing. It's really weird. So there's something there with like letting go of the logic, and then this comes in. Um, and I was not part of a science group, never went to college. So I think I was the perfect like open person. And yeah, when plasma started coming through, I had no agenda. I didn't want to like, oh, I can make money off this, or oh, I can do this, this, and this. Like I had a pure want to make myself feel better and help others remember their own inner power and that they're not alone. Cause I've felt so alone my whole life, and I've struggled so much with dark thoughts and intrusive thoughts and trauma and feeling disempowered. And I know I'm not. And I really want people to feel those things too, that they're, magical and they are special and they can get through anything. So I just think that mixed, my innocence of that plasma maybe knew that I would never go to the dark side with this. And I never will, no matter how much
mm,
I've been offered a lot of money to, do some secret projects, to do these things with and
really?
I have denied so many things that had to do with plasma. I couldn't even begin to say it on here. And I'm very picky about who I talk to with plasma because a lot of people don't have great intentions. A lot of people do too, though. But yes, so when I went to Ramir, the company RIMERE, and they work with plasma, I had a good feeling about them. I think, they're one of the good ones. And there's this guy there, Garrett, who's a genius. And then there's this guy, Anthony, a neuroscientist. And he was studying the way plasma connects with emotions. And I really think he's onto something. He's like their dark horse. Like, or the secret kind of horse genius there. So he was showing me these different tests with the best emotions that work with plasma. And the one side step I want to take is actually the same way the body lit up with love and joy. The body also lit up with anxiety and fear. And it showed me
Mm,
why we get addicted to those things, because it makes us feel alive, but it's not the same. It's
uh,
just the same lighting up. So I thought that was very
mm.
good. But what really plasma responded to is play. And when they were in the lab and they would do plasma experiments, they got overexcited, the machine would shut down. But when you're in a
Oh,
and then
really?
Yes. And then I used this like metal hand he had that was linked to this plasma box, and my consciousness was working with plasma to move it. And when I wasn't thinking about picking up blocks, but I just used the hand to pick up the blocks, it would work. But then if I started thinking how I'd pick up the blocks, it stopped working. So basically, plasma intelligence, and when you work with plasma with your consciousness, you have to be in your heart, you have to be in flow. And that is very hard when you're also trying to do something. So it's about going back to this state I talk about in my book called negative capability, which is being in a state of tension and the unknown and openness without grasping for anything. And it's easy at first, and then you get all in your head. So it's like, how do we do this more? Yeah.
It's so hard because this is why they often say, like, get first time lucky. And my partner, who actually is an actor as well, he used to
Yeah.
always say that his first take was amazing. Like, everyone would always like round of
Right.
applause. Wow, that was incredible. And then every single time after that, he just couldn't get it together. It was always the first take that would be the best. And he got really in his head. It created a lot of anxiety and like social anxiety because it became so like it wasn't repeatable for him. And so I think this is like something that so many people can like probably relate to an experience. I definitely can as well. How do you actually navigate that though? Like, how do you stay in that mindset? Did they give any
Yeah.
indication on that?
So they're still like just as boggled as all of us and trying to figure that out. Like they're still probably early days on a lot of that testing. But I mean, I'll say real quick, like the way I navigate it is I don't. So it's funny, like I was just naturally good at it because I didn't know what I was doing. And there's a book called The Dark Materials, which is definitely about plasma by Philip Pullman. And in the book, he said that this little girl, in order to achieve her destiny, she couldn't know she was achieving her destiny. And it's
Yes.
kind of so like I have to just I try after being in a very hard last 3 years, because now that I kind of knew what I was doing and knew I was onto something, I was losing that magic more and more each year because I had pressure on myself. I was in my logic. I was like, how do I bridge this? How do I make this simple? How do I impress people? And now I'm finally back at ground zero. I feel like my beginner's mind now about to start another book and some new plasma research secretly. And well, not so secret now. And I'm back in that beginner's mind, which is just natural curiosity. That's what it is. It is natural curiosity, and it's not knowing the outcome as much as we all want to know outcomes. It is just letting things unfold, and that is it being in the unknown, and that's really hard. But
Mm,
it's simply that, and
really
it's also
hard.
very and you for what you say, you have to feel safe in the unknown. You need to work on your nervous system. So nervous system is
100%.
huge, and I felt safe in the unknown when I started because it was almost this is weird, and I bet people will understand this, but I was very, traumatized and not safe in my nervous system when I started this. That's why I feel like it was some weird divine thing. I cannot explain that,
Mm,
but now it's almost like that was like an imprint showing me how that felt. And now it like left me, and now I kind of had to learn it on my own. Isn't that kind of weird? It's like
yeah,
touching an angel.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. The weird thing is, when me and my partner met, we had something like this. We had this like idyllic week where it was like
Mm,
it showed us everything that we could be together. And then all of our trauma came up. And it was like
mhm,
2 to 3 years of like chaos. Are we going to stay together? Is this worth it?
mhm,
But every time, we almost broke up quite a few times because we had so much shit. Every time we came back to that week, and it gave us like this, wait, that's what it could be if we just like work through all of our stuff. It's
mhm.
so
That's
interesting.
what it is. I'd
Yeah.
love to touch by an angel thing because it's how it really did feel. But yeah, it's the
Yeah.
with you guys too, because you guys are so meant to be and it's so obvious, even though I don't really know you both together yet. But
You
still, like,
were at our wedding, but in spirit.
yeah, I was the light in the background that you showed me.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I'm interested in this because we were just talking about Bashar before,
Yes.
and Bashar talks about the civilization that he comes from, and he says that they no longer have this like mechanism in their brain where they're thinking about what the right thing is. It's whatever is their destiny. It just comes to them, and they just trust that it's going to come. So they talk about not having like jobs where they necessarily like make money. They just like skill swap because they trust that always the right job is going to come to them. And so I'm so curious because it feels like it's a very human experience that is like very deeply entrenched in our ego that makes us overthink. What do you think is like the pattern that we have in our mind? That is it like are we trying to get something right? Like, do you have any
Overthinking.
thoughts on that? Overthinking?
I think it's just protecting ourselves from feeling fear in our feelings, like just the same thing as you and your partner went through and I've gone through. When I overthink, it's always because a feeling is bubbling up inside that I don't want to feel. And collectively, I literally think that's all it is. And I think there's two types of thoughts. I call them like 5D thoughts and I think 4D thoughts or something like that. And yeah, I feel like the one thought that are almost on loops, they're all in loops. Those are four-dimensional thoughts, I call them. They're like in time and space and more circular time. They could be worries about the future. They could be stuff about the past. And they're all flying around up there and we can magnetize them. So they might not even be my thoughts. They might be my mom's. They might be a friend. But whatever emotional resonance I'm in, they'll just flock to me. And
Mm,
when I can let go of thought and then with that energy, though, the fourth dimensional energy that's latched onto a thought, feel that emotion, that seed within that thought, it seems to unfold. And then I can come in with my five-dimensional thought or consciousness, my awareness, my higher self, and use that energy to co-create a reality in my future and use it for my benefit, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not great at this. I'm still very beginner. I know how it works, but it doesn't mean I embody it all the time. But I know that I have a weird intuition that that is how it works. So yeah, my point is when we can get more into our plasma intelligence, into our feeling bodies, into our divine feminine, that is when the magic unfolds. And when we're all in that, picture like these sentient bubbles of plasma, like our energy fields, what I call 4D plasma around us. Those kind of will talk to each other more. And they like, the right thing. Probably had this in flow. Like you just have an intention, you're in flow. The right person comes in, the right book comes in, the right movie comes in. And that is like what Bashar is probably talking about.
mhm.
Things will just flow when we're in that state, but we're scared of the unknown. We're scared of trauma and fear, and we're scared what we'll find in those emotions. So, but it's really nothing. Well, the only thing to fear is fear itself, and I can say that all day and still not be the good.
Yeah, exactly. But we are all terrified of fear itself. So,
Yeah. Mhm.
okay, I want to rewind a little bit, and I just want to actually, you talk about plasma being intelligent and sentient, I think.
Yes.
Could you just actually
That's right.
describe what this actually is? And I think you've also spoken about in your book the fact that plasma can only potentially hold consciousness if it's a certain temperature.
Yeah.
Could you just talk a little bit more about like the mechanics of it for anyone that's like, actually, what are we talking about right now?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, everyone. Okay, so very simply, plasma in science is the fourth state of matter. It is an ionized gas. It goes solid, liquid, gas, and then an ionized gas, which basically means the electrons free up and they become more conductive. So, that's why we see fluorescence, such as the northern lights. That is like the aurora borealis. That is why we can see neon signs that are fluorescent. It's what makes up 99.9% of visible matter. It is lightning. It is a weak plasma is fire. And then if you think about why our auras, our bioplasma, our bioluminescence, why we give off auras, because we have a plasma surrounding us that is constantly exchanging information. And when there's information exchange, just like when there's a solar flare with Earth, there's an information exchange of plasma. Some people would say some consciousness rising is going on during solar flares. That makes what? The northern lights. That makes luminescence. So anytime there's some kind of information exchange, we see some kind of like spectral or light signature, right? So that is that is what I call third dimensional plasma or just physical plasma. It is studied in science. Then, there's hot and cold plasmas, there's exotic plasmas in science. There is blood plasma, which in biology is in your blood, which is plasma. It is like a golden color. And it has the same properties as plasma in science. And they both mean to mold in Greek, which is interesting. So then I come into this and I expand it beyond science. We go into holistic science, which is more mythology, psychology, linguistics, science, math, art, and we kind of wrap that all together. And plasma is a multidimensional, sentient, living flux, I would say like kind of substance, kind of not, like quasi substance that makes up the fabric of our reality. So basically,
Mm,
consciousness cannot experience itself without some other type of maybe divine feminine counterpart. It is the cosmic mirror. It is the intelligent clay that consciousness molds, that consciousness runs through like a river to co create reality. But it has its own intelligence that is different than consciousness. Consciousness can impress onto it and impress memory onto it, and it holds memory. That's called the Akashic field, which we all know of.
mm.
And then plasma can connect, is the glue to different timelines, to all dimensions. Plasma is the glue of the universe. And it's the same way in science. In science, it is molded by electromagnetic waves. And then in multidimensional plasma, which is just finer, it just is not proven in science yet because it's like too fine to be studied because it's not particles. One day I think we'll be able to. Plasma is shaped by consciousness. So just like
Mm.
electromagnetic field shaped plasma, this finer plasma, multidimensional plasma is shaped by consciousness. I think that's enough to get into to start.
Yeah, definitely. And this um aspect with consciousness, how do you know, I guess, that it is a vehicle for consciousness? Like, what are you actually seeing that demonstrates that?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I didn't at first. At first, I had no idea what I was thinking. I just thought I knew it, and I was like, "I know this, but I don't know why." But then I started to kind of put all these things together. A few different things. Number one, we're in a bubble of plasma, right? And we are conscious, and it is holding our consciousness. And I have this really weird thought that it might have to do slightly with like certain temperatures, which is why we're like 98.6 degree wet, right? And that equals 5, and 5 is a very important number, I think. And then if you also look at like plasmoids in the sky, or like dusty complex plasma, or like UAPs and UFOs, a lot of them are made of plasma. Why? Because there's either consciousness remote viewing us through them, or they might be holding consciousness. Like in mythology, they were called chariot of the gods. So plasma holding consciousness there. Then obviously dusty complex plasma. That's a scientific term for a plasma, one of the plasmas. You can call it more of a cold plasma, I guess you could say, or like intermediate plasma. And these plasmas move in almost a conscious like way without heat signatures. Some of them, they have what's called self-organization. There are these dusty complex plasma clouds called the Kordaluski clouds. Robert Temple and Chandra Wickramasinghe talk about them. And they're in between here and the moon, between Lagrange points 4 and 5. And there are these intelligent cosmic superbrain clouds that have like DNA like filaments. They're almost like cosmic supercomputers that think just like a brain. And there are all these, aspects of plasma being intelligent, or they think it's conscious. I would call it more sentient. Um, but yes, the vehicle for consciousness, basically when I saw the UAP connection, I was like, oh, there you go. And then us and our Merkaba, vehicle for consciousness. And then like also vehicle for what I call information or memory. So, this has a bubble. Everything is bubbles around it. That Ralph Waldo Emerson has a great essay called Circles, which basically says he sees circles around everything. I do too. I thought everyone
Mm.
did, and they don't. I see circles around birds, around planes. It's so why can psychics pick up information on like your grandpa's watch? Because it has that plasma bubble that holds the memory of everything it's ever touched it.
Mm.
So, and
Interesting.
so that's how I kind of have been able to prove in my mind, oh, it holds information, it can hold consciousness. And then, when beings come through to us, these conscious beings, then they appear as different things to us, maybe in visuals, that is a plasma or a plasma being holding a consciousness or an unconscious being, which I'm happy to get into the difference of those.
Okay, this is right up my alley now. Now we're getting into like
Yeah.
UAP territory, and this is what really actually bridged the gap when I met with you and you were telling me about all the plasma stuff. I was just like, oh my god, this is the glue that brings all of this together. Now,
Yeah,
I I don't even know which direction to go in.
I
Tell me
know.
first of all about plasmoids, because I've been down a rabbit hole on plasmoids recently. And plasmoids, they have been seen either really tangibly, like rolling down the alleyways of playing, like resting in a tree. They've been in like mythology. Is it Moses that saw the
Burning
yeah,
bush.
and the burning bush? But
Intelligent
also it can just be
fire
like,
that God spoke through. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like it's consistently repeated through time, but then also we can see them like behind our eyes. Like when you do a long breath flow, you will often see like these balls of plasma. Well, now I know that they're plasma, like
Yes.
merging around.
I see those all the
What
time.
are they? Are they always conscious? Are they what? Tell me, just unpack.
Yeah, I would say there's so many different layers, and I would lie if I said I know them all, but I guess we'll start with the ones with the eyes because I think that's an interesting one. So I have visual snow, and I think that just means you could see plasma, this other plasma, and I see these all the time, even with my eyes open. It can be actually quite distracting. I actually got my eyes checked, and they said I had no floaters, so now I know it's something that I'm seeing.
Same with me. It's exactly the same
Yeah,
with me.
Yeah, and then, yes, when I meditate, sometimes I will see, like, weird, almost flashing lights, or, like, holographic lights or, like, colors or blobs as well, and or, like, in the sky, I'll look up and not like I'm seeing stars, but I'll just see these, like, wisps of white, like, all of a
See that
sudden.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, so
it's
all of
crazy.
these things, I think there's 2 things going on. I think we might be able to see that 4th dimensional plasma layer I was speaking about, which is almost like our own emotional kind of bioplasma layer between us and reality. So it's almost like they might be carrying our thought forms and our emotions. My other thought is that, and this I don't know, that they can also be these conscious beings, almost like, our 5th dimensional higher selves and all these beings like looking over us, like kind of being like, hi, we're here. Like I kind of hear that voice sometimes, like not really, but like, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
just like that kind of vibe, like very whimsical fairy like.
Yeah.
Um, so that's like that. And then I would say when these beings visit us, and we'll do the plasmoids last, but when plasma beings visit us, we might see visions of them, which are usually mythological visions. This is why people might think that they were Cleopatra in a past life, or Jesus, came to them and now they're chosen. It's like, no, that stuff comes to everyone because your higher self, God, whatever, speaks to you through mythology. So these are actually
Mm,
personal communications that have very direct meaning for you to apply to your life. And yes, maybe you're meant to tell the world, maybe some is meant to be private, that's for you to discern. But it depends on the color and what mythology it is. And you can get all this information from like analyzing it. But it's not about like the ego and what comes to you. It's about the meaning in the images that come to you, if that makes sense. And yes, there's 2 different things. There can be informational plasma beings, which might show up as a gray alien, might show up as a gypsy or a dakini or your mom or someone who passed on. Like it could be anything, and they're more informational. They're not conscious though. They're unconscious. They're conscious imprints, I call them.
mm,
So they're just reflecting your own subconscious and what you've seen maybe that week or
interesting.
that month. Yeah, and they're a color. They're a seed, right? A memory from the 4th dimension, which is time and space, still past or future, ancestral or not,
So that's like
trauma.
the collective consciousness it's pulling from there and
Collective
bringing in.
unconscious. Yes,
Yeah.
like Carl Jung, that's what he was on to saying with the archetypes. So it's like these suits that they're in. And when you can see past the reflection, you can uncover the seed within it, which might be a traumatic memory that you've been not looking at. So that's why a lot of people
Yeah.
visited by those kind of aliens also have a lot of trauma. And the second they work on their trauma, the aliens disappear. Hello.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, there's a lot of things. And they're almost, some people call them like interface events because abductions, like really, you might not be abducted, or like if you're thinking that an alien is like, putting something, in you, it might be a sexual trauma memory. And I actually had that. That's why I'm saying that, because I actually uncovered that it was an actual trauma memory with a human, not an alien. But I kind of,
wow.
and if the military does that stuff, I don't fucking know that. And that could be true too. And I have no idea. And that would be crazy. But I'm just saying my experience, because, I stopped having those experiences after I helped my trauma. So, what is it? I don't know. I'm sure there's a bunch of weird stuff going on. Um, and then there is conscious beings, or what I call intelligent beings, more 5th dimensional beings, and they come through this same 4th dimensional layer, right? Because that layer is how we make things tangible. It's our own emotional spacesuit. Like we wouldn't even be able to understand what the heck this is, or even see it if it didn't come through this layer, this like translation layer. So they might show up still as a gray alien, as a fairy, as Jesus, as Mary Magdalene, and it still might not be that. It might be an archetype, and they are trying to get us a message through the archetype. Or it
Mm,
might actually be a being from another planet that is benevolent. They're always benevolent if they're coming from a 5th dimensional space, because they have to travel through plasma. And the way you travel through plasma is with love multidimensionally. Um, and I know that's like a paradox, because, like, okay, you're like, how does an evil gray alien with a trauma memory visit me? That is still in our time and space. It's not going outside of our reality. It is just memories and unconscious. But a conscious being, in order to travel, which is why we can't time travel yet, because we're still working on our egos and, being evil humans. Um, we can't physically time travel because of this. So there's almost like a
yeah.
fail safe built in. But yeah, conscious beings might come as we might see who they really are if we can see past our own subconscious filters, or they might be in, some kind of archetypal plasma spacesuit, right? So
Mm,
those are the 2 types of those. Then there's, yeah, the plasmoids in the sky, the UAPs, same thing with them. They collectively reflect our own cultural beliefs, which is why different cultures see different things. Or as
Mm.
we, in the 1800s, people saw very steampunky UFOs. Now we're seeing plasma, right? We saw
Mm.
metallic things in the 40s, Industrial Revolution. But I think now we're actually seeing their pure form. And that, I think, is what real disclosure is. I think the disclosure is that we're at the foundational layer of we're not attaching a story to it anymore. Besides, now we're attaching our own emotional story to it. So it's like we're attaching our fears or thinking we're going to be saved by these things. Or when for some reason I don't have a bias, I know that they're just trying to show us how they work with plasma and our own magic. And they're trying to reflect our own power to us. Otherwise, they would have done something else by now. Like it's been like 70.
Mm.
Like disclosure is a bit of a distraction in that way. What it really is just a reflection of our own human power and also maybe these higher beings supporting us.
So are you saying that whatever we're seeing in the sky is a collective projection of what we
Yeah.
think it should look like? So, and they're
Yeah.
changing because our collective consciousness is changing.
Yes, but if we're seeing plasma, I wouldn't. That's not a projection. That actually, I think, is what it really is. And I could be wrong, right? In 100 years from now, it might be a new projection, and I'm projecting plasma.
Mm.
But the weird thing is, in science, they're actually made of plasma. So that's why I think we're actually kind of figuring this out. And it seems like we're at this new paradigm where, once again, we're at ground zero. We're seeing what it really is, but now we're projecting our emotions onto it. But now we're almost at the base layer where we can look at our own emotional state as a humanity and be like, why are we in so much fear? We're questioning consciousness for the first time in a different way, like by stepping kind of outside of it, where
Mm.
there's something going on. And we're I think some of us are questioning, the alien narrative and like, what is it really? And like, obviously it is aliens, but like also it's like our future ancestors, right? I think it's a part of us. And then I think also, though, some things that visit us are alien. They are actual beings from other realities, but they're benevolent and loving and interdimensional. So we have interdimensional benevolent beings, and then we have these fourth dimensional things, which are just our collective trauma manifesting in these weird visitations, which are not conscious and they're nothing to be
Got
afraid.
you.
Yeah.
And then what about extraterrestrials? So something that's just not even interdimensional. Well, I guess they'd have to be interdimensional if they got to
So
here and they were
that's
absolutely miles
Well, no,
away.
there's like a third thing, I guess, and this is like something I don't admit I have no clue. Like, yeah, maybe they're in this reality, right? In Jupiter or like on Titan or like on something in another galaxy, which is still in our universe, right? That's not a different
Yeah.
reality, not a different dimension. There might be life there. But once again, I think if they can travel faster than the speed of light to get to us, I swear to God, they have to be benevolent because I think once you
Yeah.
break barriers, you can't be, evil. And I think that's why we're not breaking those barriers in the ways we should be. And that's why I think the singularity is actually realizing we have to become more conscious to work with technology, that it's not going to become conscious. We're becoming more conscious in our, emotions and recognizing that I think there's a huge craving right now for feeling because technology is just not doing it for us and AI is not doing it for us the way we thought it would. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that there's that third type but I don't know how they would get to us unless they're beings of love. So
I think that they must have to be interdimensional if they were to travel that far, because otherwise, to just be extraterrestrial without being interdimensional, it means that it would take them millions of years to get here. They'd have to
yeah,
have figured out how to.
well, they might have, but that means they're beings of love anyway. So then who
Yeah,
cares? Whatever.
exactly.
Yeah, and they're not going to interject
Yeah.
because any being of love, just like a grandparent to a child, knows you have to let your kids make mistakes. You're not going to interject and save anyone.
Yeah, so true. Okay, let's talk about this a little bit more because we've spoken about what plasma is and how it's kind of manifesting and, how we know that this is something that is conscious and that is worthwhile studying. But we've spoken a lot about like trauma and the impact of our own emotional states that
Yeah.
has an influence on plasma, whether it's
Yeah.
projecting on it or literally co-creating with it. I would love to hear, first of all, what is, from your perspective, the importance of our emotional
Hmm.
state in relation to plasma?
Um, Everything. So I think that this layer, this bioplasma, this four-dimensional plasma that surrounds us, our biofield, or that is for most of us covered in trauma because it holds on to our memory. So
Mm,
most of us, almost every human listening to this, I mean, I think everyone, it's just different kinds of trauma and it's all relative to who you are, have been through some type of trauma collectively, if not individually.
mm,
And if we suppress it and don't feel it in the moment, which most of us don't because we were not taught in our nervous systems how to feel things when they happen, because that's just not normal, I guess. And we don't know how to really integrate them in the moment because we're not a society built on ancient wisdom anymore. That gets frozen in our field. And that shapes our worldview, and not just our worldview, but how we interface with reality, with this plasma reality. So, and this is where you come in because I love all the stuff you say. But yeah, like the way we're interfacing with reality, our nervous system, right? Our tentacles, our bioplasmic tentacle consciousness, we're going to work with realities in ways where we're working from our inner child who's very damaged and traumatized, or belief systems that are very outdated or not serving us anymore. And I would love you to give examples because I feel like you can give way better ones than me. But yeah, so basically, plasma is holding on to this frozen energy, and we have to untangle these coagulated knots, right? These fourth dimensional knots. And Inanna, the goddess, in the Sumerian times, she actually symbolized by a knot, which is funny. Inanna's knot.
mm,
So it's like going into the underworld, right? The fourth dimension, and kind of, you cannot solve something with the same mind that created it. It's about going into the feeling dimension, the fourth dimension, and unknotting these and healing trauma. And trauma is all about like your resonance and water. And so, like, I'm at a certain resonance now with how much I've healed, right? So, and I'm not saying we have to be obsessed with healing either. Like, life is a dance between healing and like living, right? And it doesn't mean you can't also achieve things unhealed. I had my biggest awakenings unhealed. Like, that's a mystery. I can't explain that. But there's ways to also like hack into it, right? To live a better life. So, when I'm in this resonance right now, there's my future potentials, which are all set in stone based on right now. And there's my past potentials, what have happened based on my trauma right now, because everything really is happening now. Let's say tonight I have a therapy session and I heal a memory where my mom always called me a monster, which was a true story. And then I thought I was a monster. When I would get angry or sad, I felt that was monstrous because she
mm,
literally would call me a monster. And, her mom did. So this is a whole thing of ancestral trauma. If I heal that and no longer think I'm a monster, I'm going to start resonating different and attract different future potentials, or an emergent future, which could create a whole new future based on that belief system. And I'll bring people in who don't anymore show me how I'm a monster. Instead, they'll show me how I'm not a monster. And you literally start to change your reality. So, anyway, my point is, and I want you to build on this more because this is your expertise. My plasma holds all of that. And by changing your resonance and healing your trauma, you literally change your reality and how you move with reality and your relationship with reality. And not to mention, you unlock intuition and magic powers, because the more and more you fluidify this field, the more and more it unfreezes your own freaking potential. And we turn to butterflies. Yeah.
It's actually bonkers because so for anyone
Tell
that doesn't
me.
know, I teach manifestation. And
Yeah.
so manifestation is completely crossed over with plasma, because essentially the way I teach manifestation is everything that you've ever experienced in your life is held in your nervous system, in your fascia. And, as you were just talking about knots, like we literally have, when you go and get a massage, like you
Yeah.
literally, they're massaging out knots in your fascia, right? Like in
Same
your
thing here.
muscles. And it's the same thing, like when you have something like an event that happens in your nervous system, it does create like a ball of energy that you can only release by like fully feeling it. Um, but, and I just also wanted to say on that,
Yeah.
you said earlier, like, I don't know why it is sometimes when you reach, like, you can sometimes have these profound experiences, like when you're in a really dark
Feel.
place.
Yeah.
This is often because like you need to reach like a rock bottom. Like in the Kabbalah, they talk about sometimes in order to have the most light, you need to be the most desperate. And so
Totally.
when you reach a rock bottom, you actually want it the most, and that's actually when you don't have any of this like
You're
fear that
surrendered.
comes in anymore. You've completely surrendered, so it like
Yeah. Your
actually lets
beliefs are
in the
gone.
light.
You're like,
Yeah,
fuck this.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so I think we've spoken about this before. Like we both have experiences like where right at the beginning of our spiritual journeys, like we were cracked wide open. We have these really, really incredible experiences, super
Yeah.
visual, really real, and then they just kind of dried up. And I actually don't have that many like
I don't either.
anymore. it was like mainly at the beginning of the journey, almost to like give you this sense of like belief and
Yeah.
like trust that everything
Yeah.
was going to happen. Um,
Those
but yeah, so
the
yeah,
beginner
it's
stuff I'm talking about.
exactly. And I think they do just act as like an invitation to like,
Yeah.
there's so much more that you're not aware of. What are you prepared to do here? And it also just like catapults you into like new levels of healing. So that's why a lot of people in like the healing space, they have these incredible stories because they do often bounce back from rock bottom. And, I know that you have personally experienced, addiction just like me. And that was really like the like springboard for you, like getting into a lot of this because it takes you to the rock bottom. You almost like, there's even a study about people that are in financial stress, and they
Yeah.
find that if someone actually declares bankruptcy and they're honest about it,
I've done
they
that.
are
My
they're
life.
10 times. Yeah, and it literally changed their life. Whereas if people try to not declare bankruptcy, they actually stay stuck in financial hardship for far longer because they're not reaching that rock bottom. It's so
Yes.
interesting.
And the
But
cracks
all of
of the
that to
get in. Yeah, all the things.
yeah, all of that to say, all of this is like linked to manifestation. And so everything that you're talking about, with the trauma that you're experiencing, like, thinking that you're a monster and then experiencing those exact scenarios over and over again. What I find really interesting, I have a question for you about, is like when you actually start healing these things, it is like you shift timelines. Because I've
Yep.
actually noticed that when I heal, I will actually heal the people around me as well. So when I've done like deep healing, whether it's with my mom or my dad,
They'll
independently,
heal.
not with them, yeah, they
Yes.
heal, like they
Right.
literally change. And it's so confusing because you're just like, and the more I've gone into like spiritual texts, whether it's
Yeah.
like Kabbalah or shamanism, I'm a
Yeah.
shamanic practitioner, the more I've sort of understood like this is like a collective web that we are all in, but it's literally like the consciousness shift. So I'm super curious, like, from your perspective, what is actually happening there? Like, how, if we heal, does it affect someone else? Are we literally jumping timelines? Or is it that it's affecting their consciousness in a different way? Yeah, I'm so curious.
I mean, I guess it could be a paradox in both, right? And outside human conception. But what I find is that I totally am in different timelines and I just, different potentials. Same thing. Once again, you change your future and past potentials because it's all happening now. So the second
Yeah,
I heal that, my resonance changes. That's going to heal my entangled. Everyone has free will, but that's going to heal my entangled relationship with my mom, which I think in turn heals something weird, which maybe plants a seed in her to heal at the same time. Like, yes, that kind of makes sense. But I personally think what's happening is I do shift a potential timeline, like a slightly
I
over to
got
where
you.
I'm with a mom in a different timeline who's still my mom, but slightly more healed already. Like, I think it's actually a mix of both, and we just can't, and we're not supposed to
We
completely,
can't
but I know
understand
it.
it.
Yeah, and we're not supposed to, but what we do understand is the experience of it, and the experience is real, and that's all that matters. So,
Yeah. I'm fascinated by it because I teach a lot on like quantum leaps, and this can often be like a manifestation buzzword that people say, oh, I want a quantum
yeah,
leap and blah blah blah. But like I've done like 4-day trainings on this because I
yeah,
actually believe that there's actually a science that can be put behind these concepts.
yeah.
But I totally agree. Like, I do think that there is, I don't understand it. I don't know what the proof would be for it, but it does feel like there is some kind of like shift in timeline and reality, and therefore people that you're actually getting to like interact with.
Uh-huh.
But I'm curious because quantum leaps often happen when it's a very, very fast shift in timeline. And
Uh-huh.
so often it's come off the back of, and this is the part that people don't see,
Yeah.
months, if not years, of like healing, of taking action, of doing the thing over and over and over again, that then in a moment, like everything seemed to shift. And we were just talking before about, I just had this 2-week like vortex period over the time that I got married. I've had
Yeah.
so many of these like quantum leap experiences, whether it's like buying the exact house on my vision board, um,
Yes.
or, even meeting my partner, a lot of these like quantum shift moments.
Yeah.
What is actually happening there, do you think, that suddenly everything just speeds up?
Okay. So the way I'm seeing it right now, my visual is like, the brain with neurons, how there are all these small filaments and then you see these bigger clumps and they're small ones again. I think that's when you get to like a big clump and the timeline shifts. Like if you picture all timelines,
Ooh.
like the chaotic neurons, like there are these like very impressionable moments that I think happen on several timelines and they're very dense. And they're also like part of your, I guess, destiny. It doesn't mean you don't have free will. It just means they're like, very dense things in a lot of your lives. And so they're just very impressed. And I think the other thing is that when you're operating a certain way and you all of a sudden it's complexity theory. It's like the monkey theory, I think, where it's like the monkeys are all like not smart and then one monkey like changes something and then all of them become conscious. Like kind of like I forget what it's called and I'm saying it really bad, but it's that way in complexity theory with the fractalness of plasma and the river of consciousness. It's like all of a sudden, like you've done like 10 different steps, just like monkeys for like a million years. And then like, this, I wouldn't say humans, like, I mean, we came from monkeys, but we also had some weird mysterious thing. And I think intelligence implanted in there. But my point is we do all these things, right? We do something for like 9 years and like weirdly on this like 10th year or 5th year, something locks in a place and everything fucking like explodes and just like, so I would almost picture it as like, yeah, this event I'm seeing where you're like in this circle, you're in this thin thing, you come to this big circle, things expand, you like go like 1,000 timelines over and you're in like all like so how someone gets famous and all of a sudden it's like really fast. But if
Mm.
you have worked towards it. But yeah, it's just like these expansive, that's the only way I know how to explain it, if that made any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I love seeing how your brain works. It works. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, let me just create a diagram in my mind and
Yeah.
like move this bit over here.
Yeah.
I love
Sometimes
it.
I'll just see things in like, I'm seeing you, but I'm also seeing something off on the side. I'm like, okay, I'll just say what I'm seeing.
I
Yeah. I
love it.
think in
I'm exactly the
metaphor.
same.
Yeah. Yeah. Neurodivergence, think in metaphor.
Yeah. We've got like several visuals happening all at once
It's
everywhere.
like this. It's like
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
That's the moment. That is the timeline shift. It's like a fifth dimensional. I don't want to use the word like Hiroshima or a bomb, but it's like the inverse of a bomb. It's like a good bomb. It's like a
Yeah.
consciousness bomb.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I love it because and it kind of maps with like what I talk about because I talk about like you basically have all of these fork in the road moments where you go through
Yeah.
life and you are constantly, the universe will, creator or plasma, whatever you describe it, will
Yeah.
constantly give you these moments to choose. Am I going to take the path that I've always traveled and take the slower route and then you'd continue going down around like the long
Yeah.
path, or do you want to take this like very sped up path and then heal all of your trauma? It's like going through like a wormhole where like
Yes.
everything like becomes like chaotic and starts shaking up and you've got to
I
face
love
all of
it.
your fears and face all of your shit again, and then you come out a different person and then you're one step closer to that large blob and it sort of like emerges you, and if you do
Yes.
enough of those fork in the roads, the opening just gets larger and larger, and so eventually you kind of come out into this, it's a moment of singularity where you don't know what's on the other side, but it
Yeah.
is sort of just like okay, suddenly now is the time where
Yeah.
the mirror that you've created on the inside is just going to completely reflect something completely different. Have you ever
Yeah.
had any of those
That's my
experiences in
poem.
your life?
Yeah. So I'll find it another time. It's a poem what you just said called Slide about how when you feel like you lock in, it's almost like it's like this like transparent tube you feel like you're just rocketing through when you're like aligned in
Do
my
you
life.
have any experiences like that from your own life where you've gone through the fork in the road moments and then it came out and was this huge quantum leap?
Yeah. I feel like I'm going through one now. I feel like I had a very dark few months and was very addicted to like my social media and my thoughts and my phone and finding a boyfriend and like in a very dark space mentally. And I'm all of a sudden like, I've just like, but I've worked on myself so much and I'm at the point of like, there's nothing left to distract me. Like I'm ready to face my wholeness and myself, which holds a lot of fear. Right. And, um, in that, I'm like, starting this journey of this new fantasy book I'm writing, a speculative fiction book, and going in a way where maybe isn't predictable or like, what people think I would be going in. Cause I like, oh, it's the plasma girl. She's going to write another book about plasma. Like, yes, I will. But like, this is where my heart is. And it feels like I'm all of a sudden like skyrocketing or like all these people I don't need are falling away. The right people are coming in. I had money come in. So I was able to take 3 months off to write this book. It feels like I'm in this weird expansive bubble. But I was like almost like right before the bubble, it was like a birth where I was like squeezed and it was like I thought I
Yes.
was about to die. Like literally had
And
thought and
everything falls apart and you're
everything
like,
fell
what is
apart.
going wrong?
Health issues, I had intrusive thoughts about dying and like, but I know by now because I've been through it enough that like I'm not actually dying. Like my little voice says I'm gonna live for a long time. Like it's more my ego's dying again. Like The old me is dying. I don't like saying the ego's dying because the egos helps us be a vehicle, but it's like not really the ego. So yes, that is happening now. I will say I think I've had it several times. Like one time I remember when I made my movie, which didn't end up doing well, but I remember I got like a Deadline article about the movie, which is like unheard of at the time and hard for someone like me to do, and it just happened. And I was like, I quantum leaped, like I don't know, or like
But I mean, even your social media, like
my
you
social
blew
media
up
was
in a year.
yeah, sorry, that was a quantum leap. So basically also talking about plasma, I went because I faced the fear of talking about what I really wanted to talk about and just be a weirdo and thinking, my fears of being outcast, I let those go. And I finally felt safe in myself talking about what I was meant to. And yeah, I grew like 200,000 followers in the past year and a half, which is so insane. But to me, it's just because I don't know if it's that I'm not satisfied or that it feels normal to me. My nervous system, it feels normal. So maybe I should need to celebrate myself more, but I'm just kind of like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. It feels like whatever. But same with my book, even though it was a dream of mine a few years ago, my nervous system feels safe in it now. So I'm like, oh, now I'm not trying to chase a million. It's more like, oh no, but I see that for myself and I see my next book being even bigger. And it's like, that's okay, I think.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're making the reality of what you want real in your mind before you actually get there, which
Yeah.
normalizes it. And
Yes.
I think that's a really big part of like manifestation, which
Yeah.
is, that's what Dr. Joe Dispenza's work is all about. It's like
Yeah.
remembering the feelings of your future and feeling them today, which I think from your definition would be 5D
Yeah.
plasma, would you because you're in that like resonant state more, I guess. And so
Yes.
you're experiencing more of those elevated emotions because you almost delusionally believe that it's just inevitable.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm curious, like, what is the importance of being able to visualize and experience the future state today, and how does that actually impact plasma? Because I guess one of the larger questions that I have that I kind
Uh-huh.
of am skirting around is like, how are you actually specifically co-creating with plasma here? Like it
Yes.
sounds like your future, experiencing your future feelings, but like, what does this look like on a day-to-day basis that you're actually co-creating with plasma? What do you do specifically?
I
That
love
was
that.
like 5 questions. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but
I can
it
answer
was
it.
just like,
No,
just
they're
like, get them
all
all out.
because it's like a thought form, right? And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're thinking we're neurodivergent here. We're thinking in thought form. So that's 5
Yeah.
questions. 1.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'll say, which isn't probably what most people will expect, is it is a very divine, feminine, divine child way of being, where it's more co-creating with the mystery, which means there's 2 things. There's 2 different types, and I think both are doable and they're both co-creative. One, which I actually don't do as much, is visualize what I want. And the reason I don't do it as much is because in the past few years, I haven't been as connected with my heart. I've been, a little bit more my ego, wanting to impress, wanting things now, wanting, maybe just wanting instead of being more settled in my heart and self and aligning with my soul, if that makes sense. Like, and that happens to everyone who gets, a little bit of like, success. Like, I think at first you kind of have to integrate with it. My point is, I'll rush to want to make something for validation rather than following my heart because that's just my addictive nature. So I
Mm.
don't visualize this much right now. And same with a guy. I'll like want this like very sexy younger guy, but then I don't even think about the values and morals, right? So I try to stay out of visualization when I know I'm not grounded in my heart because so let me move
It
over for a
creates different feelings otherwise. It's like
so
creating it's not like love, which because really you want to tune into the future feelings, not the future visual.
exactly. So when I do visualize, like so I can visualize. I know I can make anything happen. Any of us can. I can visualize and want to be, a famous actress, movie star, and be that. But guess what? My soul will feel empty. Like I can visualize that guy. I'll meet him in a week. But guess what? My soul will feel empty. So my point is, I stay away from visualization with that. And yes, when I visualize using feeling, that is beautiful and works because it's following the essence of myself. And it's almost like
Mm.
visualizing by letting it come to me. like
Yes,
what
exactly.
God dreams for you, what your higher self dreams for you, right? So those are two things with visualization. But I think if you're settled in your heart, it's amazing. Right now, I'm settled in my heart with my book. So sometimes just very lightly and playfully, I'll visualize, oh, this will get over 1 million sales, or like, oh, I'll be talking on a big stage at the Sphere about this in 5 years, and magic and plasma, and oh, I'll direct a movie about this, it'll win an Oscar. Just like fun things though, nothing too attached, just like so anyway, but my favorite thing to do is to be in the plasma of and of the mystery. So I like to co-create by learning how to be in a relationship with reality, which is plasma. So with my consciousness, right? What I call plasma consciousness synergy. So I'm better at this now. I'm not saying I always do this. I'll kind of feel through my day and let my day unfold and work with the mystery of my day, meaning I work with like the ineffable, the unknowable, what you could call God. And plasma holds that, right? So and I'll work with plasma and I'll let it bring things to me. Like for instance, today, I woke up, instead of like having a huge to-do list, which I always do because it makes me feel safe, I was like, I'm gonna flow today. I followed my intuition. I went to walk around the lake, and then I was like, I feel like getting pancakes at this diner. And I went there. And then I was like, oh, I'll feel like, and sometimes when I'll do this, I'll meet the perfect person, or like I'll, see the perfect sign or the perfect book that I meant to see. And I'll have ideas for like my book. Like I had ideas for my book at the diner when I was eating a pancake. Who knows if I would have had those ideas if I went to the grocery store first, which was on my list. So my point is, the way I co-create is I surrender to the mystery, which is a very divine feminine way of living. Visual, like creation and visualization is more divine masculine, but they're both good. And I like to flow through my days. I'm trying to think about if there's anything else to say about that. Basically, to sum it down and simplify, I listen to my inner voice. I'm present in what's going on around me and signs and symbols. I let myself be open but still discerning. If I, get something in my mind that feels like my essence, I'll follow that. I do what is fun. I do what feels playful. I don't do anything I feel obligated to do. I let myself cancel something if I want to. And I just flow in the magical mystery tour of life.
I love it. Have you read The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer?
No, but that probably sounds similar to what I'm saying.
So similar. The only difference is he basically says yes to everything that kind of comes his way, and then the universe unfolds around him. And the one thing that I've always like struggled with that is like,
I don't like that.
if I said yes to everything, like there'd be so many things.
Discernment.
But what I really love about what you just said was like there is if it resonates with what I'm feeling on the inside, then I follow that, which makes much more sense. By the way, the Surrender Experiment, I do recommend everyone like.
I think it's great to get out of your belief systems. It's great to get out of your.
It's really good. And it's really good for surrendering. If anyone has control issues like me, it's a really, really great book just for like, I read that book like 3 or 4 times. It's like a Bible for me because it's just reminds me of like the synchronicities and the magic of the universe when you surrender. And that is also what you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah. I had a year where I said yes to everything, and now I'm burnt out from that. But I did do that, and it did break me out of things. And I did, discover a lot of new things, and I'm over that now. But I did it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that there usually is a time where you learn to listen to the inner self. So I guess a question for you, because there's going to be a lot of people that are listening, and I know a lot of the people that come into my membership or are on my page, one of the questions that they have is like, well, how do I know what is like right and wrong for me? And I think even for myself, I used to really struggle because I had such a loud ego, and like coming from addiction, from undiagnosed ADHD, it was so fucking chaotic in there. I had no idea what was me and what was my ego being like, do this. And still, even, sometimes I'm like, some days I'll wake up with a really cloudy head and I'm like, go to the shops. And I'm like, do I just want to go to the shops? Or like, was that my intuition, So how do you build, because it feels like a muscle, right? How do you build this muscle? And is there anything specifically that you've done that has helped shaped that ability in you to know this is the right thing? I'm going to follow that call to go to that coffee shop.
Yeah, I would say the number one thing actually is what my therapist taught me, which is grounding, which some of us forget, like everyday grounding, not just in nature, but in my adult self, because I have a lot of trauma. So I can run on my inner child, which is very traumatized in many different ages, and my inner teenager. And then I think what my intuition is really survival fear. But sometimes, fear is still your intuition. It's telling you basically if you're having that all the time, then you're not really aligned in what you're doing. And it's more trying to, so it's like, then I'll journal and I'll be like, oh, why am I having all this? Like, am I following the wrong thing? Right. Even like, wanting to go on a date with someone, like there's like, I don't think anything's the wrong idea, but like, for instance, I wanted to go to a movie and like be in my feminine. And then part of me was like, oh no, let me go on this date. Because, having new experiences, but I felt more in my essence if I went to the movie, but I decided to go on the date. And I don't think that was as aligned, but I also learned more of what I don't want from going on the date, if that makes sense. But at the same time,
Yes.
like, I do think if I did go to the movie, I would have had even a more beautiful time with myself. So my point is never worry about making mistakes because you actually learn either way. But I would say there's that rougher, more four-dimensional path, which I took, which was the date, which is fine. And once I said neither are bad, but then there's the more fifth dimensional way, the intelligence, right? The essence of you. Um, so neither is to be scared of, but I do find the more I follow the feeling of myself, the essence of myself, that's how I know it's intuition. Like it's usually like the first thought I have is my intuition. It is something that makes me feel calm. It feels like a whisper. It feels like a gel rather than something loud and cutting, which is more like fear or my mind. It
Mm.
feels like, for me, my essence feels like smell of cotton candy and gardenia and like gel. I don't know how to explain it, but I have a certain like feeling when I know what to feel, but I don't always listen to it because I have fear and I'm like, oh, what if I don't do this though? So yeah,
Yes.
I think the biggest thing with intuition is this is more my fear and this is more my intuition. Yeah.
I love that. So it sounds like you're really saying you have to discern what the difference is between like a heart-based decision or fear. And so
Yeah.
really this is it kind of sounds like it's like emotion understanding emotions in your body, which I think a lot of us
Hmm.
actually avoid. Like we don't want to feel
Yeah.
the feelings. We actually do a lot of numbing behaviors. Me and you were
Yeah.
alcoholics because we
Loving
didn't
that.
want to feel any of that. We wanted to feel amazing all the time and then it just
Yeah.
suppresses it and pushes it down. So in order to actually experience more of your intuition, you have to open yourself up to feel more of this full spectrum of the human emotions so you can
Yeah.
define, oh, that's what fear feels like for me. Oh, that's what
Yeah.
anxiety feels like for me. And I think the science to say that like what's right for you within like zero point 0.3 of a second or
I
something.
always
So
know. I just don't listen.
yeah, you exactly. And so then it's the fear that comes on that
Yeah.
will convince us something different. So interesting. Okay, one other thing that we were talking about before we got on here was we were talking about plasma and like religion and spirituality. And one of the things that so I'm part of like this Kabbalah group that I go to, that I've been a part of for like a couple of years now because I just like really enjoy like the teachings. But I asked them because I knew that we were talking like what Kabbalah believes about extraterrestrial, like UAP, like interdimensional beings. Like, is there any belief? And they basically said yes, there is a belief, but they believe that basically we are the only species or race with free will.
Mhm.
And the rest of basically there are other species and races and they all exist. And so they believe that, yes, but we are the only ones that actually don't remember our like past lives or something, which allows us free will and everyone else doesn't remember, which I was kind of like, I don't know whether that sits right with me, but we started having a conversation and I was like, stop, because you have some really incredible points on this. So I'm super curious
Stop in the
when
name of
it
love.
comes, yeah, stop.
Okay, sorry.
Um, literally, I'm just like cover the camera. I'm like, stop it.
Okay, go
Cover your
ahead.
mic. um, when it comes to free will
Yes.
and the universe, really, what are your beliefs around it? Do you agree or
Sure.
disagree with that? And
Do.
yeah, I'll leave it there.
I paradoxically disagree and agree at the same time, and here's
Okay,
how, 'cause
amazing.
everything's a paradox. So Yeah, I agree with the fact that we in time, space, reality may be the only beings um dimensionally in fourth and third dimension that have free will. And that could also be beings on other planets. I cannot speak for them and if they exist. But in the fourth dimensional time and space reality, where most of the alien encounters come from, which is really just the collective unconscious and coagulations of memories, and they're unconscious aliens, they're not conscious,
Mm.
which is really why they feel alien, because they're alien to us because there are feelings we don't want to face. And I know that sounds out there, but I'm telling you this, I hope this happens in my lifetime, but I really think we're going to figure that out, that like our literal unconscious has coagulated into a reality. And just like
Can
our,
I just interrupt you one
yeah,
second? Because there is like a UAP whistleblower account, and I can't remember who said it now, but basically they said that they had found these ships which the government are trying to communicate with, which are unmanned ships but are
oh,
conscious.
yeah.
And so you need to basically, in order to control those ships, and I guess they would probably be able to shapeshift as well, you need to project your consciousness
Mhm.
into those ships and have like a very clean, clear consciousness in order to
They're
do that. So, I mean,
class.
what you're saying, kind of like even just in disclosure theory, kind of actually pans out that, you know,
Yeah.
our consciousness could just be interfacing with these things and just creating some kind of like projection.
No, 100%. That's so interesting. Yes.
It's
And they're
wild.
those things are made of plasma, which is why they're the perfect vehicles for consciousness, but that's for another time. And then they solidify into metal and look up the Gilliam model. So anyway, yes, these these beings are four-dimensional beings, most of the aliens, not all of them, and they are our collective unconscious visiting us to for literally us to heal ourselves. And this is how the universe is made. I do not know why. It's a mystery. It is not a freaking simulation. It is a living, beautiful flower of life reality that has free will and emergence. And there is also a deterministic structure to it. As I said, my potentials are all determined right now based on what I heal. But the beautiful thing is, the more I heal, the more free will I have to change those structured potentials. Even though they're always structured, they're always changing. That's what the flower of life is. So it's determinism and free will in the same thing because it's a paradox. So the beautiful 4D little deterministic realm that is not so deterministic has that's what I think the Kabbalah is talking about with these aliens. They're actually the unconscious and they don't have free will. They're not conscious. They're
Mm.
literally our
Mm-hmm.
consciousness pressing into the memory Akashic field over time in past, present, future, all happening at once. How could they have free will? They're all happening at once. They're in that fourth and what
Mm.
else is all happening at once? Our emotions, our thoughts. So that's almost very interesting when you tap into that timeless, but time space, right? That four-dimensional space, that would be the wormhole to fifth dimensional space because we're tapping into this in-between layer of our emotion, of, hacking into time. I don't know where I was going with that, but that made sense to me. So then
I love it.
there is that then there are these that fifth dimensional space, our higher self, which is the launch pad, I call it, for all reality. So if we want to be in love and awe and curiosity and really communicate with these other conscious beings, not unconscious but conscious, not, let's say we are not going there physically right now, but let's say communicating astrally, or like intelligently and consciously, because that doesn't threaten these beings. We can't hurt them with our consciousness. Our higher self is almost like our radio broadcast system to all these other realities. So when you're like a flower, you go through the fourth dimension first, then you're at the fifth dimension, you're at this like whimsical circus launch pad, and then you could talk to any other realities and other
Mm.
conscious beings. And those all have free will. They very much have free will. And that is almost why when like some of them kind of touch us, our lives almost unfold in these crazy ass mysterious ways. And that's what the touch by an angel thing is, I think. But yeah, so there's two layers. And I think all religions have some projection, right? And we have to think, okay, what was the culture like during that time? Like, how women are put down in a lot of religions, even though religions are beautiful things, like there is a bias to women being homemakers and like the dark feminine, the sin desire. Desire is not sinful. I write about that a lot in my book. It's actually beautiful. And women, and food is sinful in, why. And I went to this talk the other day with women and it was like, I think it was called like Art Crush LA or something. And it was like, why are women and food associated with like desire and bad? And like, why are there no women ever eating feasts in movies, but only men eating feasts? Like, there are all these things.
Interesting.
Yeah, my point is we need to be with the times enough to break open any religion and not be called heretical and let religions evolve, because religions need to evolve and they should evolve just like us. Nothing should stay stagnant. Nature grows. If we're being like God here, religions, why aren't we growing? Like, we don't, like, everything was written in religions in that time, just like now. What I'm saying now needs to evolve in 1,000 years. It can't stay this. So, yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I actually think that a lot of this actually gives science to a lot of like religion and spiritual beliefs. You know, we talk a lot about like Jesus and Mary Magdalene because
Yeah, let's
they
talk about
are
Mary.
actually, yeah, let's talk about Mary for a second, because like these are actually, you know, consciousnesses or
They're real thing.
imprints that they're real things that I think that this area of study actually just proves. And so yes, it may be,
Yeah.
you know, uprooting for civilization to have these conversations that potentially we aren't the only thing out there, and that the way that a lot of things have been like simplified in, you know, religious texts maybe don't, they're more metaphoric than they are like
Yeah.
exact.
Yeah.
But how do these like spiritual beings like Mary Magdalene, what are your experiences with them?
This is why I actually have great respect for religion and for story, because once again, mythology for me is the language of intelligence. It is the language for these conscious beings. So these stories were almost co-created with us and our higher selves, with us and
Mm,
God through different cultures and locations on earth. They're all messages from these other realities. That is what is so beautiful about it. But these are living messages, and that is why they have to evolve, because they're constantly co-created through the times with our consciousness. So the beautiful thing about structured information like the Bible, like Mary Magdalene, like any archetype is we can take that structure, that information, and bloom with it and evolve with it and evolve it through. It's like a portal, right? All
yeah.
books are portals. All books are structured. They're not living words, but they are living portals. And every time you read something, even from 1300 or 1600, you can think of new things based on the old structured information you're reading. So once again, structured, right? 4D emotion is beautiful and a portal to the fifth dimension, intelligence, right? So everything's a portal to our higher selves. With that said, Mary Magdalene to me is a few different things. She represents plasma. She represents the misunderstood female. She represents the beautiful magic of the feminine, being called a prostitute wrongly by religion in like the 1500s. That was never what she really was. This one stupid pope like said she was that, and then it got carried away. Like, dumb. I'm
Yeah.
fine being heretical and saying that. Mary Magdalene was the divine feminine magic that communicated with Jesus and used gnosis, used her plasma intelligence. And where was Jesus? He was in the fifth dimension, right? He was in that higher self by then, God, whatever you want to call it. He was that intelligent, conscious being layer. And what did she use? Gnosis, or that 4-dimensional area to communicate with him. And what is that, Mary Magdalene? It is our plasma intelligence. It is our 4-dimensional layer, our gnosis, our wisdom, our flow, our magic, our emotion, our feeling. And what did that all get? Demonized, because what? It holds fear, because we've had so much war and trauma and, people being scared of females and feminine power, that they've all been suppressed.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, that is why there's not just Mary Magdalene, there's also Jesus, because there needs to be a balance of consciousness and plasma, of discernment and intuition, of feminine and masculine, where it's not all about the divine feminine either. It's about the divine child. It is about bringing the feminine back in with the masculine or consciousness, bringing the plasma back in, right? Bringing our intuition and magic back in, bringing fear back in and darkness, and healing that, and together flowering the age of Aquarius, or the divine
Mm,
child, or emergent realities. It's about learning to work with these two things, whatever you want to call them, plasma and consciousness, masculine and feminine, yin and yang, Shakti and Shiva. It is about making sure both of them are not sinful or lustful or dark, and in knowing both of them are rainbow in their own right, and healing both of them to create our reality with them, and using them both as tools. So they're both tools for awareness, for our higher
Mm.
self. So our higher self is like reaching through the glove of consciousness and the glove of plasma. But where we have to start back with is reintegrating the feminine, which is Mary Magdalene. So that was a long tangent on that. And then Mary Magdalene also is always seen with like roses, which, a plasma universe, it looks like a rose. It's not just a spiral if you look it up, which is funny. Yeah. And then also Mary Magdalene and Isis and Inanna are all near skulls, and they're all Joanna, what's her woman? You need to interview her. She's in Australia. She writes The Other Goddess about Mary Magdalene, and she writes Alien Goddess, and she talks all about the
Mm.
goddesses. Her name is oh my gosh, I'm literally doing something with her. What is her hold on. Joanna Dr.
I think you've sent me her profile before. I can't
Yeah,
remember her name now
I
though.
have the book. Hold on, I have it right here. Hold on.
Alien Goddess is the book.
Kujawa. Dr. Joanna Kujawa. Look her up because you need to interview her because you're both in Australia. So she talks about how all these goddesses have one thing in common where they're around skulls and they're around when periods of resurrection. So they're around when
Mm.
Jesus gets resurrected, right? They're around, Isis is around when there's a resurrection with Osiris. And then I think there's Inanna and something. Anyway, my point is, this actually symbolizing how plasma is the key to immortality. Because when plasma resurrects consciousness, we will remember our past lives. We already remember them. So saying we don't and we don't have free will is silly, because a lot of us do remember our past lives. It's a more subtle realm. So it's not like that concrete. But
Mm.
the more we remember this, the more we could die consciously and know that we move on to other lives, and we can almost like we're immortal because we are remembering those things, and we know there's more. And the more we learn about the feminine and magic and plasma, the more we almost crack open the Akashic realm, which is what plasma holds, which will bring us all those memories. And that's actually what we're
Mm.
evolving to be. We're evolving to be mortal beings who know they're immortal, not physically, but actual consciousness. We're immortal. We have all these other lives. We can die knowing we go to those other lives. We'll probably come back here. We'll probably do a bunch of other shit we don't understand. And it's not about being enlightened. It's not about ascending. We do that when we die anyway. It is about learning to work with our emotions and plasma and our beliefs and reality, knowing we co-create here. And when we die with our beliefs. And that's
Mm.
what hell is. If you die with a certain belief, you might be in that hell of that belief even when you die. We carry that on with us, and we carry on it. That's why if someone dies and sees Jesus when they were religious, it doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means that that was their belief, and that's carried on, because plasma is going to reflect your subconscious even in the world beyond here, right? So there are all these layers. And then, there's the more fifth dimensional layer where it's very co-creative reality. So we're all in those places at the same time and here. And I don't even know what I'm saying now, but basically the divine feminine, Mary Magdalene, symbolizes a lot of the feminine needs to be there in order for consciousness to be resurrected, is what I was saying.
What has been like your experience? Have you had any like wild meditations with Mary Magdalene? Like, how did she help formulate like this, body of work that you've created?
I feel so connected to her. So I think this is probably within the same week or two that I had the whole plasma thing happen. I had a meditation. Let me see if I find, I'm just, it's in my notes, but well, let me just see. I'm going to see if I have the date in my notes because I wrote this down. Do. Okay.
Must fill the gaps with humming.
Yeah. Okay. Mitzi. Okay. So this is like 2021. I was connecting with, this woman, Chaya, Anana, Danu, and Mitzi. But where I think, here it is. So I'm just going to read my notes. My white deer told me its name was Mitzi. This was in a meditation, which I figured out means Mary Magdalene or Divine Mother, which is insane because my white deer is my mother from the other world who came back to give me knowledge and told me to keep going. And she couldn't tell me anything else because I was supposed to learn through experience. And if she told me, I wouldn't become who I was supposed to be. And that was before I heard about the dark materials where it said the destiny and you can't know what you're doing to become what you're doing. I heard this first in a meditation. So basically, yes, I had a meditation. I went into this forest. I saw this big white stag and I looked into its eyes and it said it was Mitzi, and it swallowed me. Its eyes became the universe, and it swallowed me, and it put me in its womb, and it was like it fed me teal liquid, and then it gave birth to me on the forest floor, and I was in this teal goo, and then became an adult again and stood in front of it again. And I was like, I'm really struggling with my life. Like, please tell me what's gonna happen. Like, I'm so worried. And it was like, keep going. I'm a cosmic mother. Keep going. I was like, that's it? And it was like, keep going. I was like, what? This is crazy.
Give me the
And,
secret.
and it was like, you wouldn't do what you're meant to do if I told you, just keep going. I was like, all right, this meditation's over. And then I came out of it and I Googled Mitzi, and Mitzi literally means like Mary Magdalene or the cosmic mother or something like that. And like, I'm almost positive. And I just couldn't believe my ears. So anyway, that was the start of Mary Magdalene and mine's connection. And I think it's almost like she's an archetype for plasma, the same way Anana is, the same way any divine feminine. Plasma is almost like the original feminine archetype, just like consciousness is the original masculine, and all those gods are consciousness. And then they're riding the beast, which is plasma. They're riding instinct or intuition, which is the
Mm.
vehicle, right? So yeah, Mary Magdalene just came through as an archetype, maybe from my higher self, maybe from plasma, maybe as Mary herself, who the fuck knows, maybe all three of those, to help shepherd the plasma wisdom to me. It's like Sophia. It's all the same stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because you
very
find
real.
I've definitely found like the more you do this work, or at least as soon as you have the intention to do this work, they start coming through to you. And I guess that's potentially because your vibrational resonance shifts. So you're more like approachable and they're more like curious.
Yeah.
By the way, I
Yeah.
have, well, you said white deer, and I was like, because I've had the exact same, well, not the exact same with being
Yeah.
born, but like with like a white deer, a stag, I actually made like this shamanic drum. And as I was making it, this white deer came through. So there's always like a spirit that lives in the shamanic drum. You make it over like a couple of
Yeah.
days. And then the spirit basically chooses you, and you create like a unionship with the spirit. The spirit in that drum has always been a white deer. So it's so weird because I've got such a connection with Mary
Oh,
Magdalene as well. She came to me
yeah.
through a meditation, and I didn't know Mary Magdalene. She told me her name was Mary Magdalene. We were dancing on a rose and everything. And when I researched it, it was on Mary Magdalene feast day that like she
Oh,
came
that's
through to me.
yeah, and we're
It
both
was
we're
crazy.
like her daughters.
Yeah, it feels that way. And I find it interesting because a lot of people get into this work and they suddenly start having these, and by this work, I mean doing healing, whether that's breath work, and that's the modality that I teach, or like deep meditation. You start seeing more of these beings. And from your perspective, is that because we are just more open, like our consciousness is more receptive? We are in that more curious state?
That is, well, they're all plasma beings, right? They're coming as different archetypes. So, and what is that? It's either a trauma or like timeline or kind of memory visiting us, something unconscious, or it's an intelligence visiting us. So, the more we're
Mm,
open, the more visitations we'll get that come as these archetypes. So, if your certain path is something with the feminine, those are going to come through to you more. And it just so happens most of us are right now reconnecting with the feminine because as a collective, we're connecting with our bodies, with our magic power, with plasma. That's all feminine. That's going to birth the age of Aquarius, which is the divine child. But once again, we have to reintegrate the feminine. And yeah, the books I would recommend are Womb Awakening by Seren Bertrand. I love, if you haven't read Womb Awakening or the Magdalene Mysteries. And then
mm.
there's Magdalene Manuscript, which I think has to do with like sex magic, but there's like interesting stuff in there and then The Other Goddess by Joanna Kujawa. But yeah, all of those changed my life, reconnecting me with like my body. But there's one thing to read it, and there's another thing to like actually learn about embodiment and doing like qigong or embodiment or nervous system practices, or like having your app, which is great, and doing the breath work. Like you have to experience it. You can't just know it logically. Like I can say this all day,
Exactly.
but you have
Yeah.
to apply. We have to, by the way, before we get off, talk about the homeopathy connection because I need to know more about that.
Yes. Well, I was literally just going to be like, I've got so much more I want to ask you, but we're already at like an hour and a half. I feel like the homeopathy thing is
Do you
so
want to make that a
interesting.
separate thing? Okay, or tell me now. Tell me
Yeah, I
now.
wonder I wonder whether we do it as like a separate thing, because I I feel like it's like a bigger conversation, because I could probably talk about it with you for about half an hour.
Okay,
And I
we'll
feel
do
like, just to be respectful of your time, like I don't want to like dive into like an entirely new topic, but yeah, I think that there's just there's honestly so many tangents that we could go on here, and I'm just absolutely fascinated by like your body of work specifically, because
Thank you.
it seems like to be the missing link between a lot of these different subjects. And, I
Blue.
talk on, UAPs, aliens, healing, homeopathy, and a lot of people are probably going to roll their eyes. Don't roll your eyes until you tune into our next episode where we could talk about it more, because it's all, you and homeopathy came to me in the span of like a month and a half. Like it was like the universe was like hitting me in the face with that, and that is kind of where I'm really deepening my research now. So I think let's come back to that conversation, because I think it's a much larger can of worms than we have time to like go into today. But is there anything else that we haven't covered that you think is important for everyone to take away with today?
I do actually. So the one thing I wrote down that we didn't talk about, and this is for mostly the women, is female sexuality and coming back into a healthy relationship with that. And no one really talks about that. And like for instance, and this is going to get a little bit into feminine stuff, but I talk to a lot of women who have not had even an orgasm, and they're beautiful girls and they're like 30, 35, or women who just cannot even feel their body or who dissociate during sex. I've had all of those issues because I had a lot of sexual trauma. And one important thing about these goddesses and getting back with our body is learning that being desirable and having desire is not sinful, and we are not sirens. We are not monsters. We are not Medusa. We are not this evil goddess, that we are these beautiful rainbow goddesses that have been suppressed over time. And we're not demonizing men either. It has just so happened that throughout time, men and women, when there was a woman who would shine and had beauty, she could only have beauty or smarts, right? And she couldn't have both. And when you did shine as your multidimensional, beautiful self, whether that was inside or outside, you were demonized because you threatened the people who didn't want anyone can shine, but you threatened the people who weren't brave enough to dive into their own shine, right? Who wanted to fit into society. They were outcasts. They were, the shining ones, right? And that all links back to our sexuality and being able to move freely, because, there have been a lot of suppression with the feminine and magic with men and women, but with women, especially with sexuality, because, we do grow up and we get weird stares from older men that were very inappropriate, right? We get people groping our bodies. We feel like we can't desire men, or we're like Medusa, but men are allowed to desire women, like, but we can't have, or we can't desire ice cream or we'll get fat. And it's like, I would ask women to please start experiencing these desires again and the divine feminine, because it needs to be integrated and balanced and have discernment, but you have to at least open up that can of worms that you're scared to dive into, which is your own magic power. And this is for men too, by learning more about the goddesses and energy and your own sins and desires, and really getting honest and at least feeling and working through those, and what feels like you can dive into those, and what feels like maybe you need to integrate, what feels toxic, what feels raw. But I just want that all has to do with plasma too, because plasma holds all of those things. And when we can integrate that, is going to be very healthy for us all as a society. So I just wanted to share that.
100%. And essentially what I pick up from all of that is just you need to feel more. And I experienced the same thing, as someone that has experienced, feel to heal, as someone that has experienced like sexual assault and sexual trauma as well. Like I was completely numb from down and below, and like also had so much fear around expressing anger. And it was within like reclaiming that relationship with your body. There's a lot of the divine feminine practices, like sacred rage, for example, is like actually linked to our sexuality and our ability to feel, because when you can experience the fullness of that, then you'll integrate it more, and then you can experience more pleasure. And so even just by feeling the dark, you let in more light. And this is what a lot of spiritual texts talk about, in Kabbalah, or this is a lot of spiritual texts. In order to receive more light into your vessel, you need to experience more discomfort. And so often they talk about actually searching for discomfort, and so this is where, like, yes, you don't want to get trapped into like healing all the time. But if you are someone that feels shame is a huge blocker of like all of this stuff. And
Yeah.
we try to not feel, even at the moment, I'm going through a homeopathy journey, and one of the remedies I've been given is on shame. All of this stuff from when I was 17 years old, I'm 34 now, has come back up, and I've just had to have a few days of just like crying and re-experiencing the shame and allowing myself to feel it, because I pushed it down so far that I thought I didn't have any feelings to it, but who knows the damage that it's been doing in my body,
I have
with
that
just this
too.
suppression. And it's like that's what we do with our womb space. Like this affects your period, I used to have like underskin acne because I used to have so much suppressed rage and hormonal issues. My bleeds used to be 2.5 weeks long because they were just so heavy, and then that stopped and they regulated out. And so the more that you feel, the more pleasure you'll experience, the more of the full spectrum, and then you get more into the 5D plasma that I think you're talking about. This is why it's all the bridge, right? Because essentially it's all just feel to heal to experience more of the 5D plasma to then co-create with reality. It's just like a
It's all heal plasma 5D
Yeah.
integrate to earth. But the thing that really important is because for anyone, because like we can all get sick of healing, right? You don't have to be fully healed, but I do think you fully have to feel. And I think that's
Yes.
what's so important is if as long we're all on healing journeys. We all have trauma to heal, but as long as you're authentically trying or attempting to get comfortable with your emotions and not siphoning or suppressing them, when you are like an open Taurus, right? When you're plasma, when you're feeling that's your guidance system, that helps you heal. So feeling for me even
Yes.
comes before healing. And sometimes we get stuck on healing and not feeling, if that makes sense. So I think healing will bring the healing. So yeah, I completely agree and I resonate with everything you're saying.
Yeah. I love it. Dana, I wish that we had another 3 hours because I have so many more, but I want to be respectful of your time. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about your book. Where can we find it? What are you up to at the moment? Give us all of the details.
Yeah, so my book is, let me get it. My book is called A New Force. Yes, you have it too. Oh my God. It's like a almost 700-page book. Let's see, is this the color version? So it has like the color version is very colorful, but the black and
Beautiful.
white version has the same information. Amazon charges so much for the color version, so I'm so sorry. But so I have this book and it is out on Amazon, but you could get it at the link in my bio on my stand.store/Dana Kipple. It is the link in my bio on my Instagram, which is Dana.the_alien. My YouTube is at Plasma Intelligence and my TikTok is at Dana Kipple. There are signed copies I have a few left of that you can order, as well as the black and white and color copy. And then my new PDF version, which I just released, where if you're in another country or sometimes in Australia, I'm hearing they can't always buy it. But there's other countries that they can't either, that they want to translate. So you can actually download the PDF of this now for only $27. And this book is $44. So you can download it for $27 and it comes with a free mini magic class where I talk all about, and I'll send that to you for free if you want, for where I talk all about plasma. And then I also have my
Love it.
magic classes. Yeah, which are on my stand store. So I have a magic class about connecting with your higher self through the secret 4-dimensional bridge, which we spoke about today. I have one about communicating with plasma beings. So if people are interested in alien stuff, it's a more integrated approach to communicating with what we think that is. And then the magic of plasma and consciousness, which is like the foundations of what multidimensional plasma is. And then what I'm up to next, you asked?
Yeah.
Um, my next project, I have one secret project I can't talk about yet, but I will soon. And then I have my speculative fiction fantasy book I'm writing, which all I'll say is it has to do with addiction and a wormhole and
Oh, my kind of
um
tea.
addiction, a wormhole. What else? What secret can I'll give you an exclusive. There's like some interdimensional wizards going on there. Yeah.
My
But
God,
it's a
I'm
really exciting
obsessed.
project. It's just, fun. I think a lot of people will enjoy it.
I have no doubt that they will, but I do just want to give another plug to this because truly, I actually am reading it. It's a really big book, and it's something just to have by your bed. But if you are interested in any of this stuff, like, it just goes into it in such detail and brings a lot of the information together, and references different books and other things that you can go into. But it's just such a great place to start if you're interested, especially in manifestation. A lot of people on my channel, really just want to manifest. Plasma is like it gives structure for what manifestation is and what is happening. And so for anyone that really wants to understand more the nuts and the bolts, I think it's a really, really great and important read. Even if it takes you, 6 months to get through, like, I think it's a worthwhile thing, because towards the back, it goes into, like, the feminine, and it's the front part is quite like science heavy, like talking about like actually what the plasma is, and then towards the back it goes into, like, how do you actually use it and everything. So I really, really would, if anyone is interested in it, please do get this book, because I think it will just put a lot more understanding behind some of these concepts that we're talking about. So well done, Dana. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so happy that we're like best friends now. So
No, we literally, you have no idea. We literally are. Like, yeah. And I was going to say, thank you for plugging that, because the back of the book's actually my favorite, because it's more like the experimental, but it actually is what I think is the most true.
yeah.
There's 5 and chapters 3. I love chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6, but 5 and 6, I would say, are probably the most experimental.
Like, even if I just open it here, you go into, like, specific things that you can do to actually tap into plasma. You've got here, like, mirror gazing, plasma magic and the violet flame, quantum touch, non-touch healing, the actual methods where you can actually start to see plasma, which I think is just is a really, really interesting. So
that's my book from. There's so much in here that I don't
yes.
talk on any of my interviews, because this is a lot of channeled, right, from plasma and my higher self and whatever the fuck. So, like, everything in here, I don't always remember to say, and it's like a
No.
fifth dimensional book. There's so much, you just have to experience it for yourself. Like, I cannot tell anyone what's in the book. It's like,
Yeah. Exactly. It just doesn't even, what we spoke about doesn't even give the depth
no.
the book goes into justice, to be honest. So please get it. And thank you so much for chatting with me today, Dana. I think that we'll probably do another episode, because we just jam, and we'll probably do, like, some kind of training together at some stage, I think, because we create, like, this bridge off each other.
I'm coming to Australia. I'm going to come to Australia. So I want to do a training with me, you, and Joanna, which is why I want you to look into her work. Because I'm telling you're going to alien goddess, and the other goddess you're going to die over. But yeah, I would love to do something with you three. Maybe we'll do that, in the next year or two, and I'll fly there. So that's something we'll talk about. And then I also wanted to thank you for your amazing app. The breath work, like, things actually work. And your app is actually a
Yay.
very usable, amazing, worthy app for people to download, where, some people's apps are kind of like, meh. Love your app. Very useful, very beautiful, very, it's kind of like my book. It's like it gives you a spiritual awakening, because there are all these different things you could try. You know what I mean? Like, you have different breath works for everything. So yeah, thank you for making that. And I think that everyone needs to download that, because one way to connect with plasma is through breath work and nervous system regulation. Because what do you connect with plasma with? Your heart, your electromagnetic field. What is that? Your nervous system and your breath. Yeah.
100%. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I love you. And we'll chat on the next one. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you like this, please give this channel a subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and pop in the comments what your favorite part of this interview was, any questions that you have, and maybe we'll answer them on a future interview together. Bye, guys.
Bye.